With Love podcast. I'm your host, George Wacker. In this episode, we're talking with Joe MIxon and Ginger Brew of Ginger and the Schnappes, a six-piece jazz band from the Lehigh Valley. Ginger and the Schnappes is a star-studded affair with MIxon on guitar, Ginger on vocals, Brian Bortz on bass, Dan Twaddell on alto sax, flute, and soprano sax, Vernon Mobley on drums, and Patrick Kerssen on piano. We talk about how they formed, promoting during the pandemic, recording during the pandemic, their upcoming shows at Musikfest, their new album entitled Social Music, and how you can book them for your next event. Be sure to see them at Musikfest and check out our show notes for more information, and check out our live stream on August 7th. Even if you missed this after August 7th, you can go to our social media, links in the show notes, and you can check it out. Thank you to our sponsors, Burke Insurance Agency, Michael Bernardin with Howard Schaefer and Associates at Remax Realty, and Venture X. We're looking forward to a really fun Musikfest, and we can't wait to talk to more of the musicians and artists. So without further ado, here's Ginger and Joe from Ginger and the Schnappes.
Strolling round the corner, making like I don't care. Hands are in my pockets, trying to look laissez-faire. Hoping that you might be about.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Hello. We're getting a little bit closer to Musikfest, so I'm happy to begin talking about music. And I'm here with Ginger and Joe from Ginger and the Schnappes. And you guys, we're going to talk about Musikfest right away. Let's just get the dates
Great.
out there. So I know you guys have multiple dates, and with Ginger and the Schnappes, and we'll talk about the whole band in a minute, an amazing jazz swing band, but you guys are also able to play, some more intimate gigs as Ginger and Joe. So what are some of the shows that you have? I know it's Ginger and the Joe and Ginger and Schnappes at Musikfest.
So, to put on my readers here, August 5th is going to be us, the duo, Ginger and Joe, at the Weiss Market. Well, technically that's the day before Musikfest, and that's in Macungie.
Warming up.
Yeah, it's getting our vocal cords ready. August 6th is our first real official Musikfest date. It's going to be at Hotel Bethlehem, 5 to 9. That's Ginger and Joe.
Okay.
And then August 10, Ginger and Joe, 9 o'clock at night, 9 to 9:30 at Liederplatz. And that's great because Liederplatz just moves them through. So we're going to be one of many bands, and we got the 9 to 9:30 slot. I think it's a pretty.
Have you guys played? Have you played Musikfest before, Joe?
Yeah.
Like in the past?
Yeah.
Like, how is that, as someone who, I know you've been in the area for a while,
Right.
but how is playing at Musikfest? I know how it is to watch bands.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's like the biggest audience you're going to get here in town all year.
Is this something too you have a chance for friends who maybe haven't seen you play? You've been asking them, and you're like, "Hey, I'm right here.
Yeah,
you can't avoid us."
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's it's just a really exciting time for the whole city, and it's great to be part of it. I believe Hotel Bethlehem, we're going to be in the terrace room.
Oh, nice.
So Musikfest. No, I take that back. Hotel Bethlehem will have music in the terrace. We'll be out front, weather permitting, and then I think inside if it rains. Yeah.
Great.
Which is, and that's the spot to be. Because, again, we haven't, last year was so, we used to talk about this, like people would complain about Musikfest and like years ago. And like, what, you would miss it if it was gone. And then it was gone.
Right.
I missed it.
Yeah, really.
And we did get to do it last year. They did a virtual Musikfest. We were one of the few local bands. We were lucky enough. They filmed us and broadcast it, and that was very kind of them. And now here we are back. So those are our two Ginger and Joe gigs, but the whole big band, the whole six-piece band, August 14, Musikfest Cafe, 7:30 to 9. Okay. On so that's the last Saturday night of Musikfest, and it's inside, so it doesn't matter if it's stinking hot or raining.
And all of these links are in the show notes, so if you're curious, just click and you can find them. I want to talk about the band because it's fascinating to me, and you guys do. We'll talk about the record that just came out, but the Ginger and the Schnappes. First of all, I know there's some stories with the name of Ginger, but then also the name of the band. So can you talk a little bit about the Ginger name and then Ginger and the Schnapp?
So I got red hair. And before we started the band, I was with a vintage dance group called the Iron Rail Rosies. And we had to have stage names. And we did dances like from the 30s, 40s, 50s.
Like you would see in like the war film?
Yes, and like Busby Berkeley was shot from above, and they're making like a pinwheel pattern, and we needed stage names. So my husband's last name is Brew, so I was Ginger Brew. That was my dancer's stage name, and it worked great. And like, how do you not use that name? That name is terrific. So Ginger for the band and Ginger Schnappes. The little cookie. Now there already was a band named Ginger Schnappes, so we had to mix it up a little bit, and we Pennsylvania Dutch, a little schnapps. So Ginger and the Schnappes.
I think it works. I think it's more fun because everyone's like, "Oh, Ginger and the Snaps." I'm like, "No, Schnappes," and then because it adds that. I get it. So they have fun too.
Yeah, little play on words.
I mean, it's interesting to me because and you guys are going to talk about this, but you are comprised of some amazing musicians, yourselves as well. Can we talk a little bit about how the band formed? How many years ago did the full band come together, and how did that happen?
2018, I guess, was the whole band. The way it got started, my husband and I went on vacation, and there was a band playing in the restaurant, and they let you sing along. So I sang along, and they heard my voice over the crowd. So the band leader came up to me afterwards and said, "We don't have a singer tomorrow night. You're staying here. Do you want to sing with the band?" So I'm like, "Do I want to sing with the band?" Yes, I want to sing with the band. So I did. And I was either really good or really awful singing with the band because I didn't know how to sing with a band. I was a trained singer, but I didn't know how to sing with a live band. So the band leader came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, you were really good except when you were really bad. You need training." Like, okay. So I got back to the Lehigh Valley, looked up singing teachers online. The name Joe MIxon popped up. I knew Joe. Our daughters went to school together in grade school 100 years ago. And I remembered the name. So I called Joe. "Joe, here's the deal." He tuned me up. And then I got untuned enough that he said, "Why don't you come to the jazz jam?" He ran a jazz jam at that time at the Artisan in Bethlehem.
You guys still play there?
Still play there. Yeah. And one thing led to another, and the guys in the band in the jazz jam would play with Joe. I got better and better. Like, hey, why don't we form a band? And we pulled it together. So was it the guys from the other members of the band were also at the jam? Everybody but Pat. Everybody. Pat.
Right. The house band was myself on guitar, Brian Bortz on bass, and Vernon Mobley on drums. And we had been doing the jam together about 3 years before this, and we knew Pat from the PA Jazz Collective, which is an organization of jazz musicians here in the Lehigh Valley and up in the Pocono region. And Pat had just graduated from Moravian College.
It's a great school.
Where I'm an alumni.
Wait, I have to correct you. It's Moravian University.
Well, that's true, but
fancy.
I graduated from the college. And we got Patrick to come on board. And
Patrick Kerssen.
Yep.
Yes, and I think the first performance was a loft.
Oh, that's
concert.
right. We did salons. We did kind of private concerts, and then we worked with some nonprofit organizations
as a fundraiser.
As fundraisers. Yeah. You'd like a fundraiser? Here's a venue. We'll play for you free for nothing to donate to your organization, and that's how we got our start and got our name out there.
And you talked about the Jazz Collective. And I did not know this until I met you guys, and I've come to some of the shows. But there's such a big jazz culture or community in the area.
Yeah.
Do you find that? Like, do you go to other places? And you were doing a jam, and you go out and see different bands from time to time in the area as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been advocating for years that the Lehigh Valley itself should be marketed as a musical destination.
Yeah. I was just at a show last night that had, who knows, 10,000 people. And, it's amazing that I was home in 10 minutes, too,
Yeah. Pre-COVID, I used to tell people I could take you out any night of the week and hear live music.
Yeah.
Multiple places. And I travel a lot, vacation and other things, and spend a lot of times in other cities. And I don't find that hardly anywhere else. I was just down in North Carolina, Winston-Salem area. Little music, a couple times a week. Nothing like the volume we have here.
And not like the quality. And I'm not trying to denigrate any musician who goes out there and puts their time into it. But it's also the quality. Like when you are doing some of the music that you're doing with there are times when I'm watching and I'm like, wow, like look at Patrick play or, watch Brian on bass. It's
Dan on the...
Right, Dan, it's amazing to watch some of these musicians individually and then think, wow, they're here for a jam, just kind of hanging out. It's just amazing to see that quality in the area as well. Because any one of the members of this band, I'm assuming, they've played on their own or have their own
Absolutely.
Accolades that we could have our own podcast on.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And they all have separate bands. We're not the only thing they do.
We were just talking about Dan Twaddell. Like I follow his Instagram, and it's and that's it's fascinating as well to meet him and then see kind of more into that world of musicianship.
And he's an engineer, so he brings that skill to it. So that's really fun as he takes his flutes apart and redoes his saxophones.
Well, I mean this in the nicest way possible. When you think of bands starting out, you usually the 20-year-old kids, the punk bands. I just did a podcast with two great guys in their 20s, and they have a punk band in Allentown. It's fantastic. But I think it's also refreshing to, like, you guys will talk about the album, but you're releasing new music. You're playing fresh, brand new music. Talk about that experience?
We're not 20.
Neither am I.
Actually, that's true. Our band has
true.
members who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and dare I say, 60s.
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So we have 5 decades of age, and frankly, I'm more towards the latter end of that spectrum of age, and I don't really want to hear a 24-year-old singing about how hard life is and all their really rough experiences with life. We've earned the right to do maybe a little more of that.
Sure.
We can sing from a real place of legitimacy on that. So I don't see anything wrong with being in our age group. And our musical tastes are refined. I don't think we fall into musical traps the way you might when you're younger. And
right. You've all been around the block.
We've been around the block
in a good way.
In life and musically. So I think we bring a little sophistication, a little nuance because of our maturity.
And that translates to it. I gotta make sure I'm getting it wrong. But that translates to like some of the songs, like Route 309. If anybody goes to one of your shows in the area and and I think everybody's driven on that road, when you're writing new music and you're having fun with it too, and to have that local spin on it is fun as well.
That's a great song. That was Joe's idea. He's just like, well, we need a Pennsylvania version of Route 66.
Right.
And Joe grew up on 309. My husband grew up around Route 309. Brian knows it well. It's not foreign to us. So it was really easy to come up with all the references to Route 309.
And now we're going to talk about this. So it's Ginger and the Schnappes, social music. And again, you can check out our show notes or go to MIxonBrewMusic.com. This is all original music.
All original music. Joe wrote all the music, and then the band members did all their solos, and I wrote all the lyrics.
Did you record this during COVID? Or was
yes,
it before?
last December.
Yeah, 2020.
And how was so you came in with the songs, like how was the songwriting process beyond, because Joe, I don't even think we mentioned this, you're the guitarist.
Right.
So do you come in and then, is it, because I would imagine, coming in with some sort of song idea in a more, I don't want to say traditional, but like a
normal time
pop band
right.
is maybe a little easier. You're coming in with a song ideas for really well-established musicians. How does that kind of work?
Well, we had already played together as a band, and we had, I think, a strollin' we had done with the band pre-COVID.
True.
We had done a little bit, and then when COVID hit, we really couldn't get together. Mm-hmm. So I think during COVID it was a pretty normal writing process, but it was a very abnormal writing process for most folks. Mm-hmm. I would write at home in my studio, and I would just come up with a basic set of chords on guitar, a little feel. We'd decide, okay, is it a little jazzy swing? Is it Latin? General feel. and I'd send that off to Ginger, and she would kind of listen. Okay, that's good. And then I would write an actual note-by-note melody. So I would write the vocal melody she's going to sing.
All right.
And then, okay, that looks good. Send it off to her. She would put the lyrics to it. And then that would take manipulating. Sometimes, there's too many notes, not enough notes, and all that. So the tunes were really written antiphonal. They weren't written in the same room. A lot of songwriters get together, bounce stuff.
Sure.
I mean, so this was one, then the other, that way. And I think that was pretty much the process on just about all these songs,
And sometimes Joe would say, let's write a song about this, and here's the melody. Like, got it, okay, he gave me the theme. And then other times he'd say, here's a pretty melody. Oh, okay, and I'd come up with, that feels happy, that feels sad, that feels joyous, and then I would just come up with the theme and the lyrics.
My favorite song is "Drunk and Dreamy." I mean this as a compliment. I thought it was a cover at first when I first heard it, and because I went home and I'm like, "Who sings that?" I guess you guys do.
We do.
So, how does it feel to be promoting a new record too? And again, you can, if you look up Ginger and the Schnappes social music, it's on at MixonBrewMusic.com, but also on Spotify and everywhere else, and you can download it or stream it. How does it feel to be promoting? I mean, that's got to be fun, and we're getting back out.
It's pretty amazing. I've not been a musician as long as Joe has been a musician, and I've been doing this a relatively short period of time, and here I got an album.
That's great.
my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren are going to be able to listen to this. Wow, Grandma was pretty cool. She made an album.
Absolutely. And when we talk about playing, we talked about COVID a little bit. That was difficult. I know that we did a stream together for the PA Jazz Collective.
Yes.
Not going too much into that, but looking forward, you guys, if you go to your website, you just did like a gig at a winery, all sorts of different places. I mean, you're still actively gigging and looking for stuff, and
yeah, things picked up for gigging for all gigging musicians. Ask any of them. This late spring, summer, fall, things have picked up. I don't know what's coming, but probably through late fall, most musicians have.
The Burke Insurance Agency is family-owned and operated since 1986. What else happened in 1986? Halley's Comet flew by, and that was pretty cool. The Burke Insurance Agency is located at 3446 Freemansburg Avenue in Bethlehem Township, and they represent Erie, Grange, and Progressive Insurance Companies. Tom and Kathleen are some of the nicest people in the Lehigh Valley. For real. They actually get to know their customers and care for them as if they were part of their own family. It's how a small business is supposed to be. They are also community-minded and support many nonprofits, which they are very passionate about. Give them a call at 610-691-3743 or find them on Facebook. Everything, again, is in our show notes. Don't wait around like Halley's Comet. Call Burke Insurance today.
Looking for a bigger home? Find Mike. Looking to downsize? Find Mike. Looking for a home in the Poconos? Find Mike. Looking for your very own bat cave? Find Mike. When looking to navigate the Lehigh Valley real estate market, the first move is to always find Mike Bernardin with Howard Schaefer and Associates of RE/MAX Real Estate. He can help you build the right game plan to achieve all your real estate goals. Whether it be a home with 10 bathrooms, a home with a large garage to park your Tesla or vintage Ford Pinto, or just something perfect for you and your family, finding Mike Bernardin is always the best way to go. So, what are you waiting for? To make all your Lehigh Valley real estate dreams come true, all you have to do is find Mike Bernardin with Howard Schaefer and Associates of RE/MAX Real Estate.
I know, some of these songs, like you said, came from an idea.
Okay, yeah.
So Prosecco was our
talk about some of go ahead.
answer to like Margaritaville.
Okay.
And Red Wine, and Tear in My Beer.
Right.
There's a song, Two Pina Coladas. So there's songs about a lot of drinks. And Ginger's favorite adult beverage is Prosecco. And just that word, Prosecco.
Sure.
Is just a fun little word. So that just kind of asked for a cute little bouncy melody. And that worked itself out pretty well. We took it into the studio and something was missing. So we kind of went back, and the inspiration came from those Italian mambos, Sophia Loren, and I went back and watched it, and she didn't start right off with the mambo. She had like a little thing she sang at the beginning to set up the story.
Okay.
So then we went back and wrote that little piece, that little preamble that comes before Prosecco. That's real dramatic, it talks about the history of Prosecco making, and then that sets off into a fun little song.
Just was thinking. Oh yes, we say it's and even having a cabaret style jazz band, but if you listen to the music, like you talked about, there's so many different influences in there. I mean, I guess jazz band makes sense to call it that, but can you talk about some of the influences you have and yourself as well?
My influences are pretty, I think, narrow for a musician. Great American Songbook.
Okay.
I was raised on the Great American Songbook. My father loved that kind of music, the big band music. My grandmother, when she was a little girl, 16, 17, she and her sister sang with a local big band until the very strict German mother found out. No, 9, that ended. But that's the music I was raised on. I never listened to rock and roll. I didn't listen to country. It was Great American Songbook. And the lyrics are beautiful. My father was an amateur musician. My mother was a librarian. Her mother was a poet. So words were very important. The Great American Songbook, great lyrics, just fun references, and nothing is spelled out. It's all innuendo, and it's just clever. So that's where I wanted to go with the music. But Joe has a much broader background, and that's where he came up with the great ideas like Drunk and Dreamy, and then the Latin pieces.
Yeah, and they all fit together in the Big Ten of jazz. Just if you said rock music.
Okay.
It's
so broad.
The subgenres of rock music, there are too many to list.
Yeah.
Same way with jazz. I mean, it's not just swing. That's certainly a component of it. The tune "On vous faire la fête" came from wanting to do a New Orleans traditional brass kind of piece. So I think that's street Cajun.
Okay.
It's what you'd think, like a second line band walking down New Orleans, in the French Quarter of New Orleans. It's got that feel to it.
Yeah, but I think it doesn't exactly translate directly into French, but it's "Let's Party."
Kind of like
You get
New
the idea.
Orleans slang.
Give or take. Yeah. So
you know what I mean.
Yeah, and we tried to channel and really play and sound in that style, so that each tune kind of takes on the its purpose or style. Like you mentioned, Drunk and Dreamy. We're definitely thinking there's a typical music feel for these kind of slower ballads, and it's a 6/8 time, so like ba 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 1 2 3 4 5 dum. So if you think of At Last and some of those kind of songs have the same feel, and Willie Nelson did a whole lot of songs with these kind of feel, like Nightlife. So we kind of tried to channel that style, and that's another one where I think the lyrics are really clever, because it gets looser and looser as the song goes on, and at the end, the vocals are all over the place, and they sound drunk, and the sax is wild.
Right.
And our recording engineer, Jim McGee, when he heard it on his own, he said, it's way too tame at the end. So he said he just grabbed a couple cymbals in the studio and started beating away on them, making it more sound like a Salvation Army band, just like wild and crazy, And we ended up kind of keeping that in the final production.
And talk about the title too, because I know with social music there is a kind of an idea behind that. Can you talk to that?
So that was Joe's idea, based on a Miles Davis quote when asked about jazz. He said, "I don't play jazz, I play social music, melodies in the air." Like, what a great concept, melodies in the air. So it's about listening to music, whether you're listening together in a live concert, whether I'm listening on my headphones, standing next to you in the subway on your headphones, whether I'm sharing my music over social media with friends, but we're listening in a social setting to the melodies in the air. And so it doesn't have to follow any strict jazz rules, because this music is eclectic. Our album is eclectic.
Yeah, it's somewhat unfortunate. It's funny. I posted a picture at the show I was at. It was Nathaniel Ratliff, and people who know him. Yeah, it was a fun show last night. And then somebody posted on it, he's like, they always get corny music there, right? So they're making fun of it. But it's like unfair. It's like you shouldn't say, oh, I don't like jazz music, so I'm not going to go hear this band. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I like about Musikfest too, is if you kind of take the blinders off, you can walk into a tent and see and listen to music and go, oh, maybe I didn't think I liked jazz music, but I actually do. Because I'm giving it a chance and I'm allowing myself to experience it.
And I think the word jazz sometimes turns people off. They think of something very inaccessible. They think of something
snooty
atonal, or non-melodic. And ours is very accessible. Our melodies are pretty. Our solos are melodic. Our lyrics are clever. So there's nothing off-putting about what we do. We don't sit with our back to the audience. We engage the audience. We're glad you're here.
You're a fun performance, but number one, because there's so many things to look at. I mean, you're up front having a great time, but then watching each of the individual musicians and then watching them play off of each other is fun as well. And that probably happens more at the jam than in a show, but it's really fun to be a part of that too when you have the whole band out there in full power.
Our drummer Vernon Mobley is great, really an amazing drummer, and he and Brian will sometimes trade licks back and forth. The bass player and the drum, the drum will and then the bass go that's fun. And then the sax, I have some high range, and I love to pretend I'm a saxophone sometimes, and he's going way up, and I try to follow him, and he can always get just a little higher than I can. But it's fun to, you play off the music with each other.
And I don't know if you had anything to say that.
Yeah, I was just saying, like we were talking about, jazz being a little off-putting with people. There's a couple things to think about pop music, like when the Billboard chart started. Mm-hmm. All the top hits were quote-unquote jazz tunes.
Sure.
Through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and at least the first half of the 50s. Pop music was, quote unquote, jazz music. Right. They didn't call all of it jazz, And then what happened in jazz is, right around World War II and just after Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie came along and revolutionized the jazz sound in a certain way, especially instrumentally, where if we have a basic beat about this speed, most of the melodies kind of went dee ba dee 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 dee, maybe two notes or two syllables per beat. Mm-hmm. So Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie came along and they doubled it. And they took the music to a new level of sophistication and artistry, but in the same point turned jazz from pop music into concert hall music. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it became much harder to appreciate it without some kind of background.
Okay.
So the famous quote is by Louis Armstrong, who said, like, the first time he heard, this style of jazz is called bebop. And some of our music has a little taste of that in it, sure. And but he said when he heard bebop, he said, this is the most fantastic thing I've ever heard, and it's the death of jazz. Oh. Because jazz won't be pop music anymore.
Because it's
not dancey.
More particular.
Yeah, and it's not dancey anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's cool. Music has to evolve. You can't tell the music, okay, stop there, don't ever move. So jazz in that way sometimes gets pigeonholed a little bit. And then when I talk to some folks and I mention about jazz, they go, I don't know if I really like it. I said, well, you like Amy Winehouse? Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
I said, her whole influence is jazz. Sure. She's reinterpreting what she heard jazz people do. Oh, I like that. Well, I said, well, there you go. You like jazz.
But I find I remember I was really big into alternative music, right, in the 90s. But alternative music isn't what it is now than what it was then,
Right.
And you have to be open to that, which kind of leads me to my next question and talk about promoting yourself. Do you enjoy having the ability to do all the online streaming and push it that? Is it easier, or are you more focused on you want to get it? I'm just kind of get your background on the streaming, because it's fun that we can do this podcast and I can literally say, click on here, and they can be listening to your music the second that they're done listening to that.
That's great.
Yeah. Right. Technically, that's I don't know how all that magic works. Yeah. But yes, it's amazing that that's out there.
Right. Especially just to be able to share stuff with people quickly, and it's also the accessibility, because with the internet at this point, to get anybody's attention, there's so much going on. So it's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to be able to also promote your album through it. So.
And we've got a new project coming up so Joe and I are going to Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to go to Sun Studio.
Ginger and Joe.
We're going to
the Sun Studio.
Yes.
The Sun Studio. Yeah. And we've got some new original music. We're going to record it. We're going to record it in that Sun Studio sound with that echoey
Right.
feel to it.
So a little departure from what we're doing, but
it'll still have that old original stuff from Sun Studio, that was jazz.
Well, too, I would imagine, too, with a big jazz band, it's difficult to get all... everyone's got their own lives,
I don't think you could get a jazz band at the Sun Studio. I think it's a pretty small studio.
But that's fun, too. Like, the fact that you guys are able to play some smaller shows, depending on who's... clearly Ginger and Joe, you guys gig a lot, and you can also find that on their website. But it's nice to be able to have that flexibility that, when you see you guys, the whole band up there, it's a treat. But then it's nice to be able to still...
And we've done some trio gigs, too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do Ginger, Joe, and Dan. Bring in the sax. And that just fills out the sound a little bit.
So, we talked a little bit, you just did, about the future. But what are the plans? Is it to... And this will be out before Musikfest. So, again, the plan is everyone go see your shows at Musikfest. Right. But are you looking toward the fall and to try to, because you haven't had the opportunity over the last year to gig out?
We've got the whole band has a couple of nice gigs coming up in the fall. We're going to be at the Inn at Birch Wild in Lehigh. It's a beautiful outdoor natural amphitheater. August 28th, 6 to 9, and that's a ticketed event. And then Villa Milagro, this lovely winery right across the river in New Jersey, September 18th, 7 to 9. That's also going to be the whole band. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're outdoor gigs because everybody's still a little COVID-y aware. And then we'll... listening rooms, we'd be good at listening rooms, but listening rooms get a little tight. So we're just going to have to play it by ear with how...
And I think we'll be back at Palette and Pour, I believe.
Palette and Pour, yes. Palette and Pour is the restaurant on the first floor of the Arts Quest building in the Steel Stacks complex in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
And I'm sure
it's a very...
people who haven't seen it, like if you used to go into the Steel Stacks building, that's the area that had like the concession, so the popcorn and all that. That's now a bar.
Yes, beautiful bar.
It's a beautiful, huge bar. So people who haven't been there, where the gift shop is now the stage.
Yes.
So you can sit, there's tables there, or you can sit at the bar and watch. And I've been to a couple of the shows there. It's actually it makes sense. It seems like they should have done that from the beginning. Clearly they had to go through things, but it just makes so sense now. I wish he was always there.
And we kind of, hopefully it'll continue into the future, but several months now, we've had a standing once a month gig there on a Wednesday night. The last Wednesday of every month, Ginger and the Schnappes has had a gig there.
And tonight.
And actually, it's going to be tonight.
Yeah, I won't get this out that fast.
Okay.
But and that's such a beautiful. We don't have to really say how beautiful Steel Stacks is, but to watch, a show there. There's even last night when I'm there, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, "Yep, this is where we live." Yeah. And you can complain, and it's clearly there's always negatives about anything, but. Wow, it's amazing to have so many. You talk about all these different venues that you can go to, and a lot of the restaurants are receptive to having paid performers, and it's nice to be able to have that. And I want to make sure we appreciate it because there's other places that don't.
Yeah, Raul Malo, he's the lead singer with the Mavericks, and they've been upstairs in Musikfest Cafe several times. He said that's the best new venue. He said there's a lot of great classic, Ryman Auditorium, all those. But he said as a new venue, he said Musikfest Cafe, sound, closeness to the audience. He's amazing.
That backdrop.
Just an amazing room. Because no matter where you're in that hall, you're close.
Well, beyond that, what are some of your favorite or more memorable gigs that you've had, or like locations maybe that you?
I really like playing the Palette. the Palette and Pour. We've done the Dime. That's
Dime
fun.
was good.
Yeah, because they have a nice stage up there. And Artisan, the little wine bar Artisan has been nothing but amazing and kind and wonderful to us.
And that's the place. It's right by the Wooden Match in Bethlehem. It used to be. It's the skinny building, which is you wouldn't think anything could be in there, but it's huge.
But they're both skinny.
But it's skinnier.
Yeah.
We used to shove the whole 6-piece
we
band
have
into a little corner in there.
Yeah.
Not so much post-COVID, but pre-COVID,
Right.
they were really good to us. There's one other use for the palate and pour. They let Ginger and the Schnappes play there once a month, but twice a month, first and third Wednesday of the month, jazz improv.
Okay.
And that is open to any jazz musician, whether you're an instrumentalist or a vocalist. And the house band that runs it is the Artisan Trio, which just happens to be made up of 3 of the guys from Ginger and the Schnappes.
Right.
How about that?
And it's pretty inclusive. We're a big tent, quote unquote jazz. We got a lot of guys who play a little bit more on the blues side. Mm-hmm. So, and a little poppy stuff, as long as it's, because jazz is hard to define as it is.
Right.
Mostly that will have some kind of improvisational component. That's one of the biggest differences between jazz and pop music, where a jazz performance, every time it's done, it's going to be slightly different. And if there's a little instrumental interlude, it'll probably be different than it was the time before. Mm-hmm. As opposed to like in a rock and a cover band, you want it to be the same way every time.
It was like, I don't know much. Well, I mean, I know some. Mm-hmm. I don't know clearly as much as you guys. But even I knew Rob Stonebeck when he went up in one of them. The person was like, "Do you know that?" I'm like, "I actually know that name." But it's fun to see them just sitting at their table, like, "Okay, it's time for me to come up to the jazz jam and show what I can do." So it's definitely a treat.
Great trombonist. He actually plays trombone on one of our songs on En Route vers la Fête.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the musicians, who are pretty experienced, appreciate the jam just as a place to come out and play a little bit, because especially midweek, there's not a lot going on Wednesday, and it works well for the people who are kind of newer to it, because they get to see those people and perhaps even be playing at the same time and sharing. We've had a bunch of folks now who've come out they play a little bit and they've come out just to visit, just to see what it's all about.
Dip their toe in.
And then we had one young lady, I think she was 16, a sax player from, might have been East Stroudsburg. I don't forget what high school. And she came one time with her folks and then came back the next time and played. And did a great job, So that's our idea, is to be inclusive, and as long as you play well with others, we want everybody to come and join in and give it a shot. So don't
be if you've got some talent, don't be too afraid. Well, it kind of goes to your point, go up and sing. If you want to sing, look where you've, from here, going up singing, and then I think it's great that band leader was honest.
Yeah, he was really nice.
Rather than one way or the other, and say you were great or say you were bad. Like he said, I think you have a lot of potential if you refine these edges.
Here are your problems, lady.
But then look, that advice though is so valuable, because then it led you to meet people and reach out people. So I think it's so constructive to do it that way.
And the Jazz Jam is very good at reaching out. It's very inclusive. The Jazz Jam experience, along with Ginger and the Schnappes, we bought 200 tickets to go see Preservation Hall Jazz Band.
200?
Yeah, 200 tickets. And these tickets we are giving out free to music students. And we don't care if you're a classical student or a jazz student. We don't care if you're 15 or if you're 35. You're studying music, have a ticket.
And how
you want a ticket for your mom and your dad? Here, take 2 tickets.
Okay.
Contact us through the website or our email, info@MixonBrewMusic.com. Hey, I want a ticket. It's August 7th is the show. It's part of Musikfest. August 7th, 7 to 10 at the Steel Stacks campus. Want a ticket? You play music? Take a ticket.
And do it sooner than later.
Yeah, do it sooner than later.
I'm going to try to get this out as quick as possible. But so if you are hearing this, I would recommend you email them immediately, because it's probably a week after we talked.
And we want the show's coming up and the tickets are going.
Well, I'm looking forward to catching you guys. I mean, I've seen you a bunch. I'm looking forward to catching you guys more. It's going to be so nice to be outside and have my family down there and be able to experience music again. And it really does come back, as you say, with social music. It even just being at a show for a little bit last night, that camaraderie, the feeling of being around people in a positive way.
Yeah, that's
what music is for, right?
Social music.
It feels like COVID was a long winter of, we can listen to it, but it's hard to experience it with each other.
Did he do SOB last night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It was
my
a fun
favorite
show. And it's just fun. Again, we have that, a place that where bands like that can come through town. It's great. So, Joe and Ginger, I want to thank you guys for taking some time to spend with me.
Thank you.
And again, everything's in the show notes, but check out Ginger and the Schnappes social music, or just search Ginger and the Schnappes on your favorite streaming device or whatever, and you'll be able to find them. And if you're interested in those Preservation Hall tickets, just check the show notes, email them. Hopefully there'll be a couple left.
Yep, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
George.
Good luck at Musikfest.
Thanks.
Thank you again to Ginger and Joe from Ginger and the Schnappes. Check them out at mixandbrewmusic.com. Search Ginger and the Schnappes anywhere, really, to find out more information about them. You can check out the show notes for more information on where they're playing during Musikfest. Please stay in touch with us. Check out our social media during Musikfest. We're looking to have a lot of fun things going on. And thank you guys again. Thank you to our sponsors, Michael Bernardin of Howard Schaefer and Associates with Remax Realty, the Burke Insurance Agency, and of course, Venture X. We'll talk to you soon.